Hey everybody, how's it going? I hope you're hanging in there. This is Scott Fedishin, the tax reduction CPA, and I am the owner of Fedishin CPA Group in Shelby, North Carolina. And I partner with our financial advisors across the country, Redwood Tax Specialists, to keep an eye on what's going on in the tax market. As you all know, there's a lot of changing scenarios going on right now, and we're going to go through those. So today we're going to talk about what's in the bill that was passed by the House and Senate and signed by President Trump just a few short days ago. There is also a Senate bill coming out today, hopefully, to get proposed and voted on. That is not included in this currently. What we want to talk about is what can we do now as employees and business owners to maybe get a little bit of relief out of the current situation. So stick through this with me and we'll go piece by piece and you'll be able to see what might be out there that you can get assistance with. So let's talk a little bit about what we're looking at in this bill from a high level. First of all, of course, they've expanded all the state programs for food benefits. So you will need to reach out for the food assistance programs in your state. Second, of course, free coronavirus testing. That is available to everybody, including those that are uninsured. So keep that in mind. Um, as far as receiving unemployment, again, this is a state by state benefit program, so you will need to check with your individual state for that. However, do know it is greatly expanded, easier to get, and they've waived some of the waiting requirements as well. For employers, check with your state also, but I can tell you for North Carolina, for example, they are waiving the penalty for people filing against you. So your unemployment rates are not going to go up and they're not going to hit your business account in a negative way for folks filing for unemployment if it's due to coronavirus reasoning. So jumping into what's out there for stopgaps for employees and self-employed folks. The gist of it is you're going to get about 10 days paid sick time off, and then that can expand up to 10 weeks of additional time off in addition to that. So help for small business owners that are having employees go through this, tax credits to help offset some of that expense because both of these programs do run off the back of the employer. That means employees are going to get paid by the employer, and the employer is going to get some kind of offset using government funding. We'll talk about that as we go through the presentation. But there is a tax credit and or loans available to offset 100% of the cost to keep your employees on the payroll during this period of time. So in regards to the qualifying time off, what we've got is the effective date of the bill is April 2nd, 2020. There are some retroactive benefits available, so don't get your hopes up quite yet. We'll go through that. And it goes through the end of the year. The first 10 days is mandatory and paid by the employer, again, as I said, as well as the longer period of time off, the 10 weeks. Who does it apply to? Employers with under 500 employees. And there are some exceptions to that. Healthcare providers, emergency responders, businesses with under 50 employees may or may not have an exception to this requirement. It depends on whether it would jeopardize the business having all of your employees take extended time off. So that is on a case-by-case basis, and the scope of this presentation today is not going to go into what qualifies for that. Lastly, I would hope that most states follow suit with what this federal law is, but not every state has to comply. There are about 18 states that waive any federal mandatory time off, and it will not apply to that state unless the state passes its own state laws for time off. So again, that's something on a case-by-case, state-by-state basis you'll need to just be aware of as we're going through this process. So let's talk about the first benefit, paid time off for up to 10 days. Full-time employees do get paid time off for 10 days. Part-time employees will get the average hours the employee worked over a 2-week period. So if you're a part-timer and you only work 2 hours a day, then you're going to get the equivalent of that for 2 weeks. So that's going to be, 20 hours of paid time off, and that's going to be your equivalent of the 10 days. If you have a variable schedule, there's a calculation for that. We're going to look back over the last 6 months and see how many average hours per day you worked. You're going to get paid up to 8 hours a day based on that. And if you haven't worked for 6 months at your current job, then it becomes the reasonable expectation at the time of hiring. How many hours per day would you have been working under normal circumstances? So all of that is going to get your amount of time off that's available to you. So let's take a look at what is available to you for time off. If you are unable to work, and importantly, you're unable to telework due to quarantine. And when we're talking about this, it does separate into 2 categories. So depending on your purpose of taking the time off, it's going to depend on how much you get paid. But if you are unable to work or telework due to quarantine, so that's forced quarantine because you've got symptoms, or you're advised to self-quarantine because maybe you had a family member or somebody you've been taking care of, or you've been exposed, those kind of things are going to fall into that category. Especially if you're seeking symptoms or seeking diagnosis and you have symptoms, those all qualify under the quarantine standard. The second standard is if you need to take care of others. That's family members that may be infected, or if there is a school closure. That's a big one affecting a whole lot of us here locally. It's affecting me right now. In my business, my kids are in the conference room right now doing homeschool. So, I'm lucky to have a conference room and some place to put them. I understand what everybody else is going through and having to deal with that, on top of everything else though. But there are 2 different methods of payment depending on whether you are getting paid for quarantine or caring for others, including school closure, over these first 10 days. It is based on your average salary. In order to figure that out, you're going to have to think back to 2019 to figure out your average salary per week that would apply to how you're going to get paid. So in regards to the amount of pay that you're going to receive, if you are, again, taking time off of work for these 10 days because of the quarantine, you will get your regular rate of pay up to $511 because you're getting 2 weeks off. That's 10 days of pay. That maxes out at $51.10. If you're caring for others, it is slightly reduced. You're going to get 2/3 of your regular rate of pay, up to $200 per day for that period of time. Now, be aware that there is no opportunity to double dip with these paid time off for sick leave and things like unemployment or specific local assistance. So don't try to get creative with this and get income and payments from more than one source. If you've got to take time off for these reasons, take it, and your employer will continue to pay your salary up to these maximum amounts for the 10 days that you have available to you. Now, for the employers, obviously paying people during a shutdown for these 10 days was probably not in your budget, so there is some relief. You will get payroll tax credits, and this is one of the ways that you're going to get relief. It's not the only way. It will offset 100% of the cost of keeping everybody on the payroll for these 2 weeks, their sick time off. It counts against your wages paid, Social Security taxes paid or withheld, Medicare taxes paid and withheld, health insurance premiums that you're paying on behalf of your employees during the period of time. And again, it's up to those stated daily maximums that we discussed on the prior slide. So look, it's great that we've got the ability to keep people on payroll, right? And not have to just lose our staff. We can continue to help our employees out. And it is 100% reimbursed by the government. So that's a good thing. There is no benefit waiting period or application process. So with this 10-day paid sick time off, if they're a current employee as of April 2nd, 2020, they get this benefit. They can take the time off paid. This is in addition to any current sick time or vacation time they may already be receiving. And no, as an employer, you cannot change your current benefits to allow for this sick time. So this sick time is in addition to whatever you've got now on the books. But obviously, it's a little bit negative impact to your short-term cash flow. The reason for that is you've got to continue making payroll. So while the obligations to submit payroll taxes are diminished or eliminated or diminished some, you still got to keep paying folks. That is offset by credits against your payroll tax filings. But again, if you got to pay a bunch of employees currently and you have to wait to get the payroll tax credits, that could be a little bit of timing difference in that cash flow. So that's something you're going to need to think about as you walk through this process and be aware of. So the next thing we're going to jump into is the 10 weeks of paid time off. So technically, this is a 12-week program, and the first 2 weeks are unpaid. However, if you remember, we just went over the 10-day paid time off rule. So that is going to cover the first 2 weeks, and then this next 10 weeks of paid time off is going to come right behind it. Okay, so you can have 12 total weeks of paid time off as an employee, and employers, you'll be able to provide this during the course of this shutdown as well. Employees do have to have at least 30 days of employment history with the employer to qualify for the long-term leave. The long-term leave, if you recall on the 10-day paid time off, there was two options: if you took off for coronavirus or if you took off to care for another family member. This is only one category of getting payment, and it's 2/3 of your regular rate of pay. However, as you can see on the slide, that is going to be tax-free to the employees. Again, it's capped at $200 a day and $10,000 in total over a 3-month span. So the salary is based on, again, your average salary for calendar year 2019, and it is retroactive. So if you're an employee, you've been an employee for over 30 days, and you have had unpaid time off because of coronavirus prior to the enactment of this bill on April 2nd, 2020, you can go and file for this benefit after April 2nd, 2020 to get paid for those missed unpaid time off events that you may have had previously. If you haven't had anything that you need to file for retroactively, just know that come April 2nd, you can file for this benefit, combine it with the first 10-day off program we covered, and get a total of 12 weeks paid time off from your employer. Again, to get coverage for this 10-week extended pay, you do have to be unable to work or telework due to the same reasons. You cannot double dip with other benefit programs like, your state unemployment, but you do not get paid, a separate sliding scale based on the quarantine versus caring for others. it is maxed at the $200 per day long-term benefit total. The long-term benefit available for these extra 10 weeks is 100% paid by the U.S. government, so at no cost to the employers. Again, it's going to cover wages, Social Security taxes, health insurance premiums, up to those maximum daily. Again, as we go through this long-term benefit available to the employees, it keeps them on payroll. It is 100% reimbursed by the government. But again, you're going to have impacts to your cash flow, right? You've got to pay your employees, and then the business owner gets indirectly reimbursed by reduced or zero payroll tax submissions going forward into the future. And then to emphasize again, you do have retroactive benefits that are available to your employees for any time that they've had to take off previously, but you're facing the cash flow issue also with that scenario having to pay that out and get reimbursed by the federal government in the form of reduced payroll taxes being submitted. Now, as a business owner and faced with these cash flow situations, what are some of the things that we can look at to think about that might help with the situation also? So keep in mind, first and foremost, the period of time where all these benefits kick in is April 2nd. The 10 days of paid time off is going to accrue immediately, and the long-term 10-week paid time off is going to be available to those who have more than 30 days of employment. So the extended leave payments are going to be paid directly by the government in case of a business shutdown. However, I don't have a lot of details on that right now and how that's going to work. Like with everything, timing is of the essence, and there's going to be some kind of program you would need to apply for. So it's not obviously going to be immediate. You're not going to get relief in the next day or two. It could be a week or more before something like that would kick in. But if your business is completely shutting down and there's no cash flow at all to pay your employees, then there are some other opportunities to look into that. And we will get into that on a next webinar that we'll put out soon here. If you've got to, you can formally lay off your employees and have them file with their state to get unemployment insurance benefits. Again, in the state of North Carolina, the Unemployment Commission is not penalizing employers for doing that if it's coronavirus related. Check with your unique state, if you're an employer in a different state, to see how that might apply to the situation. The other things you can do are apply for low-cost government loans. If they are used to pay your employees and keep people on payroll, they do not have to be paid back. So this is a way to get cash up front from the government, use it to pay your employees, and keep going without that delayed payroll tax credit. The current rate on these loans is 3.75%, so it's pretty good with a maximum rate of 4%. There is a 30-year payback period, and you do not have to make any payments on that loan for up to 12 months once you get the proceeds. So that can be a pretty extensive help for business owners that have the need for that cash flow. And these loans can be had for up to $2 million of cash flow. I will get into that on exactly how to apply and where to go for that on the next webcast. So make sure that you follow and keep in touch with our pages and our YouTube channel for the next webinar that we'll be sending out in order to cover those pieces. The next thing you can do, of course, is delay your tax payments. So as of right now, you only get a 2-month penalty and tax reprieve for income tax payments to July 15th. And North Carolina, they decided to match that. So you can file and pay by July 15th with no penalties. Now, in North Carolina, the interest accrual still applies going back to April 15th, because that has to be changed by state law. Will they change that? We don't know. We have to wait and see. Also in South Carolina, filing and payment has been extended to June 1st, 2020. The key point here for everybody is what we're recommending for all of our clients. Just push through with a regular April 15th date, because as you can see, it gets very confusing as you start adding in, other dates and other types of taxes. If you have sales tax, this does not apply. If you have withholding tax, this does not apply. It's only for income tax filings for companies and individuals, and it's temporary until July. That also assumes that you will file your return in July and pay in full in July. As far as extension payments that take you out to October 15th, that's a different story, and you may need to make some estimated payments or extension payments to make sure you've paid in enough to avoid penalties and taxes up until then. Name of the game really, as it is always, file your taxes as soon as you can, get all your documentation together, know what those numbers are. If you're getting a refund, file that as quickly as possible to free up cash flow. And if you owe payments, then either look to, extend your return out to October and pay it then, or pay with zero penalties and interest up until July 15th. So whatever your particular situation is calling for, keep those things in mind as your options to move forward there. So our self-employed folks out there, what do you guys get? Now, when I'm talking self-employed here, I do not mean you S-Corp owners. S-Corp owners are going to fall under the wages benefit calculation that we've already covered. So this is for partnerships and sole proprietors that pay self-employment tax. So you're going to get a similar benefit to the 10 days off and then the 10 weeks off that we've already covered. So what are wages in your case? We're going to look back to your 2019 or earlier if you haven't filed your 2018 tax return. What is your net income from self-employment? That's the amount that you have been paying self-employment tax on. So that number is going to be key to calculating how much your weekly salary would have been had you been an employee. And then if that is under the $200 per day, you'll get that benefit. If it's over, congratulations, you got a good business going for you. You will get a maximum of $200 per day in the form of a tax credit for up to 12 weeks. Now, that's not going to be immediate cash flow to you, but it is going to reduce your estimated payments that are required to be made and tax payments otherwise if that would have been paid based on that as well. Okay, so again, you're going to get reduction of tax that you need to pay in return for the same period of time that you might need to take off for the coronavirus reasons and shutdown of your business. All right, so that's going to take us through all the benefits that are laid out in the House bill that was passed and signed by Trump in the last week or so. Obviously, this bill primarily focuses on paid sick time off. So hopefully this was helpful. Come April 2nd, everybody that is employed will get that 10-day benefit. Everybody that's been employed for 30 days will get that full 12 weeks of paid time off benefit. There's a lot more to come. So obviously in regards to, the government loans, mortgage assistance, all those things, that's great cash flow help. We mentioned it, but didn't really cover it in this presentation. We will be putting out more information. So make sure you follow us on Facebook and our YouTube channel. We will update you as soon as we get that together. We will also provide links and resources on exactly how to go and apply for those programs, what you need to get together, and some things to think about as you go through each one of those steps to free up your cash flow. The Senate bill, I have read through the early versions of it, and I can tell you that there is a tremendous amount of stuff in it. As soon as that hits the wire, we will start going through it and do a similar presentation on that so that you guys can prepare for what's coming down the road as far as benefits and taking advantage of that. Um, Make sure you reach out to your professionals. So we're going to keep putting updates out there. I know we're getting a lot of phone calls and emails in my office here, and it's a terrible situation. I mean, I've got clients email and say, hey, is it time to turn loose all of our employees and just turn off payroll? And that's a really tough situation. Hopefully we don't have to do that. And I will certainly be here to help to any extent that I can as far as walking you through these payroll tax benefits and how that's going to work and how to plan for your cash flow. So stay tuned and we'll help in any way that we can. But just follow us on Facebook and as soon as we get information and can update everybody on the current scenario, we'll do that and hopefully, together we can make it through all this. So if you're partnering with one of our Redwood advisors, we really appreciate you as a client and definitely reach out to them. They'll be in the know and they'll be able to help you as well. So thanks everybody and keep in touch. Take care. Good luck.